In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a random color scheme. So you can use code and random numbers to generate a color scheme that in theory would look pleasing to the eye. So you don't have to necessarily pick out your colors up front. You could randomly let the computer do that for you. So let me just walk you through a real quick algorithm. First of all, of course, you're going to have an array of colors, right? And so the thing is, you would just fill these up with a loop. So you're going to go to each window, and in each window of this array you need to generate a color to fill it with. So when you're making a color, you of course are going to have some red component, some green component. I'm writing with the mouse, so don't judge my handwriting, and some blue component. Now what you want to do, the easiest thing is that you would start these with some kind of random number. And so before you even start the loop, you're going to say, okay, any, meeny, miny, red, and then some random number for green, and some random number for blue. Don't forget that all these numbers have to be less than or equal. They have to be less than 256. Otherwise, it won't make a color, and it will give you a runtime error. So you will start this, some random red, green, blue amount. Then the trick to this is you also want 3 more variables for how you're going to change these things between each color. So you've got another variable for the change in red, the change in green, the change in blue. And now you don't want these to be all that crazy, so you would make a very small random number, or well, relatively small, like maybe less than 5. Or you don't even have to make these random. You could say, I'm going to change my red by 5, my green will change by 2, oh sorry I didn't change the color there, and then my blue will change by 0. So then all you're going to do is you're going to write a loop that says, for the first window of the color array, I will make a new color out of this, put it in the array. Then I will use these variables to change those variables. So this would become like 128, and then you would say, that's an 8, and these stay constant, these change. So then you would say that like this green component is now going to change because you're going to add that 2 to it, and it's going to become like 103. And then of course when I add my 0 to that, it doesn't change. And so then you've done that at the bottom of the loop. You come back to the next loop and you generate this color to put into the array. Now the only terrifying thing is you may eventually get above 255, and that's not good. So the magic trick is going to be this beautiful percent sign. Every time you change your red, then you want to mod it so it gets back into its range. Every time you change your green, you want to mod it so it gets back into range. And so you just have a loop that says make a color, change these variables, make that color, change these variables, make that color. Now once you've done that, then you might have some fun with fine-tuning it. So for example, here's something that's randomly generating a color scheme, but the deltas, I think my deltas are random, I don't really remember. They're a random number that's less than 20, that's between 25 and 50. So that means all 3 deltas are pretty high, between 25 and 50. Now if you wanted to, you could go adjust that and say, I want all my deltas to just be 5. If you said I want all my deltas to just be 5, you get a much more subtle change, which may or may not be what you're looking for. So there's lots of different ways to do this. You could even, if you really wanted to, you could set all of your deltas to be 0 except for 1. So I'm going to set my delta red to be 0, I'm going to set my delta green to be 0, and I'm going to let my delta blue be 10. So if this is what's going to happen if I only change my blue by 10. You get a very, very subtle kind of gradient, which might look good or bad. So again, you can fine-tune those deltas just depending on what it is that you want. Here's another example where all of my deltas are random numbers less than 10. Still pretty subtle. If I do my deltas are random number less than 90, then it's going to be a little less subtle. So it just depends on what kind of color scheme you're looking for. But that is the basics of it. You have an array of colors. You set the RGB for your first color. Then after you create the color, you change them by a fixed amount. These deltas are all constant. They don't change. You just use them to add to those. You'll have a new color, etc. And don't forget to stay in bounds, and you will have a random color scheme.